Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
In my association with Project Blue, they definitely withheld information.
The whole fleet of them was on the ASA. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Total Disclosure, everyone. Sorry about the tardiness. That was my fault. I overnapped. My alarm didn't go off. I've been up since 3 in the morning, so I that was my bad. And then I had some technical difficulties, had to reboot the computer. Obviously, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Always expect that. But we're here, we're live. We're with Teresa Tyndall tonight, as usual when we're live. And we're going to be talking about some emails that the Black Vault released between David Grush and AARO, kind of that go against what David Grush told the public, that he was never formally contacted by them for any such interviews. But the email says otherwise. So there's some controversy there, as well as recently declassified project called Kona Blue. I kept calling it Kona Blue in my head and writing that, but it's Kona Blue, even though I've been looking at the document probably 9-10 times. We'll bring Teresa in for this little rant. But hey, Teresa, how you doing?
Hey, Ty, good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Thank you for understanding my tardiness.
We've all been there. You work really long days. I don't know how you do it. 3 a.m. till, I guess it's 9 p.m. your time now. That's a long day, Ty. Yeah. And you're still completely lucid and have it together, and you work a long day. So
yeah. Well, it is what it is. We're here now. And like I said, we have a bunch of things to talk about, and it's there a new SCIF meeting happened. But there is with the Kona Blue release came a lot of confusion, and that's what I kind of wanted to talk about first, because I think so Kona Blue is a remote viewing project that was proposed, and from the looks of it, some form of it did get through. Obviously, we know things like Project Stargate with the CIA and SRI happened, but this one got declassified, and all the slides of the proposed special access program, unacknowledged, by the way, this would have been one of those projects that was buried so deep, compartmentalized so much that, Joe wouldn't have known Tom was working with him. It's one of those ones. So I found it to be interesting that they declassified this, but they did. And it's raised yet again the attention to AAWSAP, the program that was funded by people like Harry Reid and Daniel Inouye back in the Skinwalker Ranch days. And that's Jim Lukatsky. He ran that program, the AAWSAP program. By the time it had gotten to LUE Elizondo, who probably did head some form of government AA meeting, if you will. Like it wasn't funded, but they were doing it as a hobby. So they had their day job, and then they would go and they would task themselves and group together, work together, and try to keep this project up on its feet in hopes for more funding. But AATIP was a moniker that was used to try to get special access program so they could get extra funding for AAWSAP, which again was the 22 million over multiple fiscal years. I believe it was 10 million and then 12 million that was given over multiple years to Bigelow, who won the contract from Harry Reid. So there's no denying this. That is how the New York Times had it wrong. AATIP was just a moniker. So AATIP was also what they picked up to separate it from the funded program once LUE Elizondo came around. And there's no doubt in my mind that he probably did had some sort of investigation for the government, for the Pentagon, but it wasn't funded. It was more like a grassroots effort. And that's commendable in itself. I don't understand why there's been so much confusion around it. It's, I guess, the problem.
I have not heard of this Kona Blue. So can you give us some background? Okay, yeah.
Well, we'll go through the whole thing, but this slide in particular. So the community right now, UFO Twitter, is saying that, and listen, I like LUE Elizondo. I think he's, like I said, commendable. I think his CV speaks for itself. But there's just been this narrative that he has not himself fixed. And John Greenwald of the Black Vault has recently called it back out, and there was some real back and forth, if you will, between him and Matt Ford of the Good Trouble Show, and calling John Greenwald Jr. an idiot. But he's not. He's right to be skeptical. He's been doing this for 25 years. So this slide, not only does it not mention LUE Elizondo, but it mentions only two people. And those are the two people in the whole thing that are dead, that you can't go ask for questions, right? And that's Senator Reid and Daniel Inouye, who's also a decorated World War II veteran, by the way. He gave that speech about the shadow government to the UN, about what I tied to the Michael Herrera stuff, a shadow government that operates outside governmental means. That's that guy. That's why they secretly gave the money, the 22 million, because they knew that this was something worth studying. Daniel had been in World War II. He had heard stories of the Foo Fighters, yada, yada, yada. It goes on and on. But LUE Elizondo does need to come out. He needs to come out of hiding. We know his book is done. It's going through the DAAWSAP process. And I think LUE needs to clarify a lot. I think there's a lot because he was the face of ufology for quite some time, and then just disappeared because of the pressure. I mean, for a guy who worked at the Pentagon, pressure from the public, that's the reason. Come on.
Ty, so do you think that money that Senator Reid basically, he gave the contract and the award to Bigelow, is that what started the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Research?
It's what catapulted it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Because NIDS, which for people who are unfamiliar, so Bigelow's always been kind of a nutty, one of those nutty real estate guys who got rich, in the 90s or 80s and 90s. And he was always really fascinated by the questions that we ponder.
The phenomenon.
And then all of a sudden he had the money to do something, and he created the NIDS, so National Institute of Discovery Science. And that was more based in the UAP field. That was more based in physical craft, that kind of stuff, advanced propulsion. That got him, in that time, he also built up a company called Bigelow Aerospace, and he did that with the $22 million.
You know, he came from a family. Did you know he came from a family of experiencers?
There's no doubt about it. There's something in this guy. We went on 60 Minutes.
I don't remember if it was his parents or his grandparents who, as a couple, they had really profound UFO craft experiences, and I don't know if Bigelow's an experiencer himself, but I've heard him talk about that with his family. And I've actually had a chance to talk to him a couple times. He's a great guy. He's really awesome. So it sounds like that was kind of the seed money that he got the government contract to open the consciousness studies, and he
ran that famous contest. Anyone who could prove life after death, formally. And I forget who won, but it was a guy from the Monroe Institute who won, and who had previously been to the Monroe Institute, which is a remote viewing. They teach you how to remote view, among other cognitive abilities that you can unlock.
They do.
Yeah.
So I went there. Ty. It was there in Virginia, not too far from where I lived. And actually, it was the Monroe Institute who directed the Army in their remote viewing programs. So as the Army was developing its protocols for military remote viewing, it actually they consulted with the Monroe Institute. And it was actually the Monroe Institute who had been using the binaural beats, and they kind of had the protocols already. So the Army military remote viewing protocols really came from the Monroe Institute, who had been doing this for a long time. They're very cool. They're very cutting edge. They're out there in the beautiful, scenic areas of Virginia. And so it doesn't surprise me that that's, who won Bigelow's contest. I remember that contest. But I love Bigelow. I think he's doing a lot of cool stuff. And so it sounds like that's where he got the money from. So what is the Kona? Okay, so you talked about LUE Elizondo, and he just kind of stepped out, you said, but it's a lot of pressure being in the public eye, especially.
Well, they're trying to say, but they're trying to say that this slide proves that Elizondo headed the AATIP program. And all I'm pointing out is that in nowhere, shape, or form is that the case. That his name is not on this slide. It has no indicators that Elizondo ran the program. But before we get to Kona Blue, I did want to get to so famously, do you know how David Grusch was saying that he formally had never been in talks with AARO about any meetings or anything like that?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Well, the Black Vault releases this. This is from David Grusch to the AARO staff. And it says, with due respect, I will need answers to my questions before I will be comfortable meeting. Please provide responses so that we can hopefully move forward and schedule a meeting. The law may grant your office need to know, but does not establish policies and procedures with various data owners. I've managed multi-compartmented activities throughout my entire career and have multiple DSCA security professional certifications. I did not ask these questions for mere curiosity. Signed, DG, which I assume David Grusch. Now, I'm not I'm not attacking Grush, but this seems a little weird. Why deny any? Now, maybe in his head, I know people like him, when they say certain things, they mean it in a different way, where maybe he never, because it sounds like he asked them questions, they wouldn't answer them. They still wanted to meet with them, but they wouldn't answer the questions, or do what he was asking. So maybe he thought by them not doing that, like they didn't try to formally meet because they didn't. So it could just be miscommunication, totally. But I find it weird that he would say that, or not because he's been very open. He's been very, very transparent and nothing but commendable in my book. But this contradicts what he said. Is very disheartening, honestly.
Yeah, it's that's curious. I'm not sure what to make of that. If
Because it seems so trivial.
It does, yeah. And like you said, he seems like someone who has been, he's been consistent in his message every time. Certainly his resume is impeccable. So, there must be a simple explanation for this. What was Black Vault saying when you said it was Black Vault who released this, right?
Yeah, he just did his job. He released it. He didn't put context to it because there's no context that you can put to it other than
he didn't
what.
have any context. That's because that's what I was asking.
But he had been trying to formally, because AARO maintained, and Sean Kirkpatrick maintained the narrative and the story that they reached out to David Grush. John was like, okay, well, I'll be able to FOIA that. So yeah, he kept going, he kept trying, and eventually this came to him. He got this from that trial and tribulation, and it confirms that AARO it was in talks with Grush to some degree. Now, to what that means to David Grush, and to what it means to meet versus email exchange with a staffer, I mean, it could be as simple as that, right? Is it him not considering this formal?
Right. Yeah,
So,
it could. I usually like to try to give people the benefit of the doubt until they've proven to me that, I can't trust them. And certainly David Grush has really tried, really hard. I mean, he's done a very good job, I think, of showing that he is a trustworthy, exemplary guy. So maybe we can give him the benefit of the doubt on this until we get more information. But if you ever get a chance to talk to him, certainly this would be like very good question. First question to pose. What's this about, Dave?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I'm trying to figure out, because I can download this, and then if I open the file, I can share it. I can share it or in a different way, where it's like slides. Yeah. Okay. Here it is. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. Here we go. So here we go. Because I made like a special thing for it. So okay. So here is AARO released this. And this is a set of slides, and it is, I mean, it's 56 slides. We're not going through the whole thing. There's just no way. But I do want to go through some of the stuff that it talks about, because I mean, this is a remote viewing program. I mean, it is exactly that. What it describes is, the project description here says, this project will investigate, identify, and analyze sensitive information, advanced materials, and technologies to increase the basic knowledge of potential emerging and or disruptive scientific and technical data. This project addresses basic, applied, and advanced research and technology demonstrations in order to identify and anticipate threats to the U.S. homeland. But it sounds like AATIP and AAWSAP. I mean, usually these kind of national security heavy emphasis programs get accepted. So, so far, I'm not seeing anything that stands out or would get them denied. A unified approach will be used for data collection and analysis, advanced technology acquisition, applied technology theory demonstration. I figured it out, guys. I know why it got denied. It says right in it, consciousness studies. And we don't take that seriously in the scientific community. So that's why it got denied, is it has something to do with most likely consciousness. Because for some reason the government up front doesn't take it seriously. Why is that? We don't know. But everything up into, see how they list it last, consciousness studies? They were trying to sneak that in there. Because that always, like physicists won't even utter those words, consciousness studies, because that would mean it makes it real. And for some reason, they won't touch the consciousness subject. Nobody will, aside from people like us in our community.
Yeah, you know, there's one, because I've been interested in consciousness studies also, so I follow that, and there is a PhD in the psychology department at the University of Arizona, and boy, I cannot remember his name right now. He is pretty much on the cutting edge of consciousness studies right now. A simple Google search would reveal it, but he's done a lot of research into tubules and microtubules in the brain, and is that would be a whole show in itself. But so there are some real docs who are doing, he's a PhD psychologist and he's an anesthesiologist, and which seems like a great pairing, you know, to be studying consciousness. Dr. Hammerhoff, that's who it is. It's Dr. Hammerhoff at the University of Arizona, and he is on the cutting edge of consciousness studies right now. And I highly recommend anybody interested in consciousness studies to look up his work. It's Stuart Hammerhoff. Really, really, he's written some books. So consciousness is, it's a hot topic, you know, it is.
Well, another thing, and if you look down at the bottom here, guys, where it says at the bottom here, total funding is in millions. So in fiscal year 2012, they would have received an initial 12 million. The next year, the budget would have doubled to a little bit over double, and it would have went to 25 million. By the third year, the budget would increase to 35 to 50 million. And then it was set up to be a 7-year proposed plan, and the last 4 years to be decided or determined. So they were thinking that this is going to be a 50, at least, let's say 50, 75, 80, 87, a minimum. The first 3 years, $87 million to study this to study consciousness. And this is right around the time that AAWSAP and AARO, not AARO, AAWSAP comes into the play, and $22 million gets pushed over there. So, do you think that they either? So, do you think that there's a possibility that this project did move forward, but it moved forward under a different name, and they just couldn't justify the money?
Or it moved forward, and you know, that's completely top secret or above, and we would never have access to that. Like, I'm surprised this has even come out, because so it sounds like this was the proposal, right? And
so this is what they call a PUSAP. So proposed unacknowledged special access program.
Special access program. Yeah. So I would think that this kind of research is definitely going on. Maybe not the specific proposal. Maybe, like you said, the budget was too much, or maybe it wasn't enough. We have no idea how much they put into these special access programs. And if you watch James Giordano on YouTube, he does a great presentation, and it was at the Naval Academy, and it's a DARPA he was from DARPA, and he was talking about how the brain is the battlescape of the 21st century. And so this entire presentation that he goes through, and it's on YouTube, he talks about all of the technology that we have, all of the ways that we have to interfere with, manipulate, and disrupt consciousness. And he really painted wars of the future as not being with tanks and, guns, and not with, kinetic energy weapons, but with weapons that interfere with consciousness. And we've heard about that. We've heard about some of that in the news with Havana syndrome, and we still don't have a good explanation for that, other than it was the Russians on United States soil doing this to U.S. citizens, which, if that was truly
not even U.S. war. Not even just U.S. citizens, but it started with U.S. politicians in Havana, Cuba. That's where it got the Havana syndrome name.
Yeah, actually started before that, but that's just what was.
Imagine
that was just the first
targeting politicians and military personnel. I mean, that's an act of war.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so it started with targeting diplomats, U.S. diplomats. And yeah, that is most certainly an act of war. And we still don't have a good explanation for that. But I just think that is a good example of how the brain really is the battlescape of the 21st century. We don't need kinetic weapons if we can do something, that interferes with somebody's perception or their behavior, or if we can manipulate their perceptions or somehow manipulate their behaviors or their thoughts or their beliefs. We don't need to fire a single shot. And so I really highly recommend the James Giordano DARPA lecture on YouTube, just to get an idea of, what we're going into in the future, because, the tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff, tinfoil sounded pretty good after I watched his lecture, although I think it was lead. Whoever goes into the lead hat business, they might have a real good business model.
Well, what's funny is I'm watching Fallout right now, and the whole thing is based on like a big company basically marketing the end of the world, right? And having a vested interest to their shareholders in the end of the world as a product. And that's a huge problem because then, that company has a vested interest to make sure that, international conflicts don't get resolved. And that's kind of the basis of the storyline. So I won't go further than that. But for anyone in the UFO community, I just want to throw out that Fallout is a show that you need to watch. Absolutely. It's up there right now with the 3-body problem and The Signal, which is 2 shows on Netflix. This one being on Amazon Prime. But
yeah, I saw after our last show, I did start watching the 3-body problem because of your ringing endorsement for that. And
Yeah,
it
wild,
is
right?
really good. It's really good. But, again, it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with sort of this consciousness manipulation and this consciousness warfare. And I don't want to get too into it and spoil it. I think you said spoilers. You gave me a time frame on that,
Yeah,
so
3
I would
months.
be spoiling it, and I don't want to. But they do, consciousness and it is definitely a part of that, and it also involves extraterrestrials or others. So it's very interesting. So I think, and I really think
Um,
that understanding
and
consciousness, not only is it fundamental to science, because we don't even know what consciousness is. I mean, we literally don't even know what the software is that we're interpreting the world through. But it's also, it's so important to understanding the extraterrestrial, or David Grush would call it the interdimensional presence, because they seem to operate off of consciousness. They communicate through telepathy. They communicate through dreams. The craft have telepathy. I mean, this is this is in every great historical, every great ancient book, every great religious book that there is. So
yeah.
they have a power of mind.
I'll leave it at this for 3-body problem. Have you ever looked up at the universe and had the universe wink back at you?
Yeah.
Oh my God, gave me shivers.
Yeah.
At
But
that.
I
At
think
that.
so. I don't think that happened. And this is a very good example of how consciousness is so important, because I don't think that
It can
really
be
happened.
manipulated.
I think they manipulated the brains and perceptions of people, and that's where it occurred.
Now you're getting it, Teresa.
Yeah,
Now you're getting it.
So,
Now you're getting it. And so again, this brings us back to this project. Now, this project, there is a page, and I am sorry, I have it big on my side. So, what is the research need? Now, this is a big part. Now, this is early in the slide. This is slide 4. This would be crucial, right, when presenting. This would be a crucial slide, because what is the need of this program? So they list the need as this research is a congressional interest item. And this is, remember, 2012 was the initial proposed year of start. So we have to assume that it took place before then. So this research addresses the critical need for the United States science and technology community to identify global emerging and or potentially disruptive technologies that can have a significant impact on homeland security. I'll repeat that. Homeland security. Not national security, not global security, like in our backyard security.
yeah, I really wonder if this was if this was in response to the Havana syndrome cases.
I'm convinced it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really am. So the focus collaborations on the knowledge-based deliverable ensures that the departmental requirements and those of the interagency partners are addressed and provided opportunities for follow-on efforts and additional collaboration on scientific investigation and technology exploitation. The department's interest area with this project target is the scientific and technical investigation, threat analysis, and assessment of materials and data of unique origin. Let's say that again. And assessments of materials and data of unique origin, engineering, and purpose.
So what do you think they mean by that? What does unique origin mean? I mean, if it was created in China or Russia, that would be foreign origin. I don't know that we would necessarily term that unique.
Well, back then, that's how you hide this, right? Because back then, the subject wasn't so transparent, right? And you hide this from being FOIA-able by saying things like that. Nowadays, they might include the word, non-human origin or yada yada yada. Who knows what what interdimensional who knows what word they're using these days, but that's why it makes it so impossible. And that's what I respect about John Greenwald Jr. is he's like a dog with a bone with this stuff, because it takes words. If you don't get the exact wording right in a FOIA request, well, he said extraterrestrial. This says interdimensional. Well, nope, we don't have what he's looking for. It makes all the difference. So it literally makes all the difference so word salad. So here what that to me, that would be just an early way of saying unique in origin equals probably, can't say definitively, but unique off-world technology and materials and engineering, because they go on to say that too. Disruptive materials, technologies that could potentially impact national power and security, yada yada yada. No, here it is. Materials, data of unique origin, engineering, and purpose. So things that they don't understand the engineering, the purpose, and purpose of. That's what does that sound like to you? That it sounds like UFOs, and I did this. AARO is very contradictory. So they're saying this is a proposed plan in 2000 whatever, right before 2012. This is them admitting that they're having these conversations, that they're proposing plans for projects like it. Thousands of these things are submitted a year. So we know just by this existing and the government at the same time publicly saying, we have no studies like such. We have no plans to study things like that. We have no skin in that game anymore. Clearly, when having skin in that game still, right? They're taking on proposals, briefs, and contract bids for programs. This did not get that far, but it seems others did. So, really the goal with this slide was to say, if this didn't get through, what did? What did? And that's the real question. Because if this is what they're showing us, what got through is 3 times as weird.
That is a very good point. If this is what's public, just imagine what's classified. Like you just now, it's 3 times as weird. Yeah. So, that's fascinating. I mean, we know that they've been interested in consciousness studies, since the 50s and 60s, when the Russians were showing people with telekinetic abilities, and certainly the Nazis did a lot of research in remote viewing and things of that nature, and telepathy and psychic ESP abilities. And so we, this has been an ongoing thing for a very long time. So it's not surprising to me. It's, it's interesting. It'll be a while before any of this technology really comes down to, really improve our lives. And it isn't just for, used as military applications. But I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting for science. And, I do hope that the civilian realm will continue to push further and tackle these really important subjects that they mean so much. This is just as important as the extraterrestrial question because it truly answers it goes right to the heart of what does it mean to be human, right? What is consciousness? Does it exist in the brain?
What makes
Is it
us
outside
unique?
the brain? If consciousness is outside of the brain, then does it go with us after death? A lot of near-death experiences would say that that is the case. So, we can't even say if the brain is more of like a radio and an antenna, or if it is actually where consciousness is. So, these are cool.
Jeffrey Mishlove, thank you. Thank you. So Jeffrey Mishlove won the Bigelow Prize.
That's yeah.
And he had gone through the Monroe Institute. Yeah. So thank you. So Rockstar Intuition. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes,
but
thank you.
Dude, it's YouTube is really killing me. Oh, so we're at over 100 people, and over and then there's only 15 on YouTube. It drives me so insane because the podcast does so well, Twitter does so well, X does. I can't with this Twitter X thing. X does so well. X needs to rival YouTube, I think. But that's not here nor there. But it just drives me a little insane to look at it and see it.
No, I'm sure it does, but I would just like to thank everybody for being here and all of our Twitter peeps.
Community is hard.
Our ex people who are here. Thank you for being here. And I certainly enjoy interacting with a lot of the ex UAP community in spaces. So thanks for being here, guys.
And you know what? We did have I should have started the show by saying this, but we had some weird stuff happen this week. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with UFOs. We'll get back there. We're going to get back there. Trust me. But we have 2 stories that you have, and they're very interesting. And so one of the things I want to talk about with real quick is you and I text, obviously, and Israel got attacked by Iran but 4 or 5 days ago, and they destroyed a Muslim temple, and they were able to shoot 99% of the missiles down. Very good success rate. And then the one that gets through destroys one of the most. It seems that the prophecy that we talked about is being fulfilled right in front of our eyes.
It does. And when you sent me that, I wasn't even awake yet because there's a big time difference, and you're at lunch. But yes, it was not the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock.
It wasn't. That was a target, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm sure it was. But yeah, I think you're right. For the Dome of the Rock to be destroyed in war would be the perfect argument for the Jewish people to go ahead and rebuild the third Temple of Solomon on that site. And, if we're already in wartime, what would they, what would they have to lose by doing that? And So, and then Israel struck back against Iran since our
Yeah.
last show. And, you know, I really have to wonder, Ty, if these Mideast wars, you know, we talked about in some of our previous shows about how the ancient Temple of Solomon was really a place to meet the others, you know, this ancient advanced presence, and not in spirit, you know, in corporeal, you know, form. I mean, it talks about having a place for their feet to walk. So we're not talking about the presence of some spirit that hangs around there. We're talking about actual beings. And I think we were feeding them. And that's why you always brought the best of your harvest, and you brought the best of your animals to bring as sacrifices, because we were feeding these beings, these ancient aliens is what I really think they were. And some people are saying it's the Anunnaki. You know, I think that's fair. That's worthy of, you know, looking at. So these ancient temples, you know, Solomon's temple, and especially, you know, it had an area inside, and the very center of the temple had the holiest of holies area, and that was separated by a curtain. And it's actually that curtain that ripped after the crucifixion of Jesus when the earthquake took place. And so if these ancient temples were really, they were embassies. They were embassies for meeting these extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, whatever I like to call them, an ancient advanced presence. But that was the purpose of these temples, was to meet them there, and not just in spirit and through prayer, but actually face to face in person. And so if they're wanting, you know, if the Jewish people are wanting to reconstruct the third temple, so that their Messiah can come back, just as we discussed in, you know, previous shows, that means that they are literally, quite literally, constructing, or wanting to build a physical structure that is very specific in how it has to be built, that is very specific in how it has to be purified, you know, even through animal sacrifice, which we discussed previously with the red heifers in previous shows. And, you know, they want their Messiah to come back. And they want their Messiah to come back, not just through a non-corporeal spirit. They want their Messiah to come back. Their Messiah is not of this earth, which by very definition means extraterrestrial. And they want that entity to come back, or those entities to come back. And they are building the infrastructure for that to take place. And now that they are bombing Iran, you know, there's quite a lot of evidence in Iran, which would be ancient Persia, is modern day Iran and Iraq. And ancient Persia really ruled that area for a very long time. And the Zoroastrian faith was the most popular faith for a very long time of ancient Persia. And still, all throughout Iraq and Iran, you can see the man there's literally a bearded man in a circular disc with wings, and this is the symbol for the Zoroastrian faith, and it is literally everywhere in Iran. It's on the Bank of Iran. It's on the tomb of Xerxes. I mean, it's just everywhere. So, you know, and they have a name for the craft. They call them Faravahars. Faravahars. Faravahars.
So this is some like aliens type of stuff.
This is the actual
They,
craft
they
that
would
the
have totally
gods
talked about
traveled.
this.
It's the actual craft that the gods traveled in. And so if we know that they weren't really big G gods, but they were, beings from somewhere else that we would in current terminology call extraterrestrials or interdimensionals,
Or
they had,
Anunnaki,
yeah, or the Anunnaki, they
or
had
something like
craft.
that. They
They were
so
flesh and blood beings just like us, and they traveled in crafts, and those crafts are very clearly documented in Iran. So the question becomes, are any of those crafts still in Iran? Um, Either by accident, like some crashed craft, maybe some wreckage, or maybe do they still have a base there? I think it's pretty clear they had a base there at some point, and maybe they have part of some of these Faravahars there. And I'm really starting to wonder, and I think it's a fair question. Is this the reason for wanting to have war with Iran? And I think it's a fair question to ask. Is that really why we went into Iraq? Because what if people will remember, we went into Iraq after the World Trade Center was hit by airplanes. That had nothing to do with Saddam Hussein or Iraq at all. But yet we used 9/11 as an excuse to go into Iraq when Iraq was completely unconnected. So the
and
question
what
always,
did we tell the public? We told the public they had weapons of mass destruction. What if they weren't lying? Because
or
these
what if there
craft
wasn't conventional weapon?
it wasn't nuclear weapons. That hey, they don't have to divulge that, right? American public doesn't need to know what type of mass devastating weapons they have. They just need to know that they have WMDs, right? Weapons of mass
Yeah.
destruction, right? So,
So yeah,
could they
very
have
good
gone in?
point.
Wow.
That's a very good point. But just it was never made clear to the public why we went into Iraq and completely destabilized a country. I mean, there's certainly plenty of theories and reasons, but it wasn't given to the public. Hi, William. Thanks for being here. Um, so I think Starblade, they seem to enjoy the fire cooked meats. Yeah,
Oh
I think
God.
Starblade
Yeah.
refers to the entities. Yes, they do.
Well,
They seem to like a good barbecue.
Well, they like a good barbecue and they like a pyramid. So what if the pyramids were their bases? And so like we see in different cultures, so in Egypt, right, the pyramid, the craft would have hung over the pyramid, right? They would have descended from the craft, gone into the pyramid, used it as a base, yada yada. Same in South America, the step pyramids. They just did it. They cut it off so that the craft could actually land.
Land.
In India, they, it almost looked like they tethered to the temples. That's where we get the Vimana. So these different craft of the different region, they're similar in nature, right? It's just the parking lots are different.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. Yes, the parking lots are different. And I think that's what a lot of these ancient megalithic structures were. They were the bases. I mean, we still can't replicate most of these, any of these ancient megalithic structures, and people have seen the pictures where it appears that rocks have been melted, into very specific shapes where you couldn't even get a piece of paper through there. we don't have the technology to replicate those things. So I do think that the ancient megalithic structures, that they were bases, and we see that all over the world. But initially, the Middle East, we call that the cradle of civilization.
Yeah,
And
that's what I mean.
I mean, even an
It's about that.
archaeologist will say that that's the cradle of, civilization. It's known that way. Uh, but I
Yeah,
think
it's what
it's
we're
the
taught
cradle.
in school.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's the cradle of civilization because, that's where they were genetically creating us. Insight Radio podcast. The way they make those pyramids is far too advanced. Yeah, I agree. And, they always said that those pyramids were, burial chambers, but they never found, I mean, that was just obvious crap because they never found any mummies inside any pyramid ever. Um, so that doesn't hold up. And then it wasn't even a very good lie. So,
Yeah, it wasn't a good lie.
it wasn't.
And people like Zahi Hawass out of Egypt,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people think he's done a lot of good, and for the people of Egypt and restoring Egypt's greatness, because what Egypt's beef is the white man always comes in and they do the excavations and they take these artifacts from Egypt out. I believe the Vatican, the British ministry have tons. That these churches and places have tons of artifacts that don't belong to them, and Zahi's gone on this campaign that basically says that Egypt has eminent domain over those and wants them back, and I side with him on it. But what I don't side with him on is his hiding and cherry picking of the data and of what he'll let out for information on the pyramids. I find it very disturbing that it's because it's a case that we see all the time is absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. I 100% agree with you, Ty. And yeah, they have to, I don't blame them for wanting to protect their heritage and their artifacts. And yes, please do that because there has been a history. But like you said, the world also has a right to know. Yeah, the British, Stuck Being Jessica said the British were really bad about that. A lot of, the
very, very.
In fact,
and then the Americans.
I think one of the jewels in one of the British royal crowns was stolen from India, and India wants it back, and the British royal family doesn't want to give it back. So yeah, there's been a long history.
It's like, dude, like you have, like it's that you can't do that. You can't just take someone's, like if someone came here and literally took our Declaration of Independence right out of the fuck, if they Nick Cage that bitch and took it back home, we would throw a fucking fit and we would go to war over that. We would start World War III if someone came in and took our Declaration of Independence and stole it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, so you're exactly right. I don't blame people like Zahi Hawass for, protecting their artifacts, but he still is sitting on top of knowledge that really belongs to everybody, in terms of, who are we and where did we come from? And
he won't allow certain experiments to happen. He won't allow certain access to certain chambers. He has blocked off certain chambers. So when the tours go through, that they have no idea, right? They walk right past them. They don't illuminate them. They you know, unless you're doing like, you know, unless you're Jimmy Church or Billy Carson, apparently, you don't get the full tour of the pyramid. It seems only those two guys, and sorry, I'm shitting on them a little bit. I love Jimmy Church, and I like Billy Carson. I love Jimmy, like Billy. It's different, but apparently they're the only ones who get the real tours. But it just it goes to show you that they are showing, and if you go to the pyramid and you mention alternative ideas, oh my God, the tour guides, they'll start kicking you out, right?
Oh wow. Well, that's
They don't,
not that
yeah,
exciting,
say you're leading, yeah, if you're leading a group of people and you're saying, and you're, you know, if you're being peaceful about it, I'm sure they'd leave you alone. But like guys like Tyler, of God, I actually almost worked for him.
Raj.
No, Tyler something. I was in the running to be a producer on his show, or for his thing. Whatever. He went to the pyramid and he was being very belligerent. He was walking up to people and he was saying, "Do you believe that aliens could have built the pyramids?" And he was like interrupting people's lunches and, you know, like pictures, and he was being very belligerent about it. And yes, they wanted to kick him out, and they almost did. And they allowed him to stay, but they've been known to kick people out who who cause a ruckus like that, right? Who are challenging the ideas of what Egypt and the Egyptologists are saying. So and we know that they definitely hide things from the public when it comes to the pyramids. I mean, the oldest one is the most advanced, right? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right. That's a question. Everyone, you know, that most people don't even know that the pyramid is actually 8 sides. The Great Pyramid is 8 different sides. It's not 4. Most people don't know that. But that's only because it only happens during a eclipse or like a certain you can only see it in a certain phase of the sun, but that's neither here nor there. So let's talk about so we talked about Iran. So there's been retaliation. Teresa, are you worried that World War III is breaking out? I think that's a question on a lot of people's minds.
Yes, I am. And you know, I was MUFON director for Maryland for a long time, and I worked with experiencers for a very long time. So I've been working with the public for over 15 years, until I left DC and moved to a peaceful life of just my own. But I spoke to enough people to know, and this is very well documented in books. And
You're calling that peaceful, Teresa?
oh, where I'm living now?
Wait,
Well,
wait.
I am having some interesting.
What?
I am having some.
Tyler Oliveira, thank you. The chat tonight, thank you. Finally, see, thank you, chat tonight. You guys have been doing great, and you're being like the producer. Don't worry. We did. Hopefully Monday we'll be signing the lease. But we did get a new apartment. So we're officially moving, and you know, the podcast studio is going to be relocating, but it'll look very similar to what it looks like now. Just to anyone who's wondering, it looks very similar to this right now, just in a different place. But we're going to do our best, and we're going to create the best experience for you, the viewer. And we're going to be able to do some in-person interviews. It's going to be really fun. So,
really,
on to your other story.
Oh, okay. So
Wait, take a second. Take a second. Take a second. Henry, it's your Herbal's Biomind. Introducing the ultimate cognitive enhancement solution, Biomind. Today's video is exclusively brought to you by our sponsor, Adentia Herbals. Unlock your brain's full potential with a powerful blend of 9 meticulously selected plants and mushrooms, each backed by peer-reviewed research for their cognitive boosting benefits and safety. Adentia Herbals formula combines organic full-spectrum powders and potent standardized extracts, ensuring that you receive the optimal concentration of each ingredient's cognitive enhancing compound, carefully selecting the most desirable parts of each plant and mushroom to create a harmonious blend that supports your mental clarity and focus. But that's not all. They infuse each bottle with personal intention of improving the lives, the minds, and overall greatness of each of their customers. Because of their commitment to your well-being every step of the way, you're going to get an exclusive 25% off your order via www.adentiaherbals.com using our code Total Disclosure at checkout. All the links will be in the description or on the screen. All right, back to your other topic.
Well, I just wanted to finish the World War III thought.
Damn it! All right, good.
Okay. So, one of the biggest themes that I consistently observed, personally, and, it's very well documented in books, and other researchers have seen this too, is people getting imagery of, catastrophic wars. And, even being taken on ships, like they have memories of this being taken on ships and being shown imagery of catastrophic wars, or catastrophic breakdown of the environment, or environmental collapse. And, that's always been very curious, and that's been going on for decades. And, and I've heard other researchers, I even heard a PhD, tell me one time, he said, well, Teresa, they lie. The aliens lie, and, maybe all that stuff is a bunch of crap. But I think that they have been trying to warn us. I think, because look at what they did with Noah. There is precedence for this. When the flood was going to occur, I believe it was Enki that approached Noah because he was actually his father. But that's a story for another day. But Noah's father was one of the fallen angels, and he approached Noah to let him know that there was going to be a flood, and he gave him forewarning. Yes, 3 wars being fought. Yeah, Donnie. Yeah. So there is historical precedence that they have warned people in the past, and to try to get them, in the case of Noah, to build an ark, or to prepare them. And I think that that's been happening. I think that's been happening for decades, and we just didn't realize it because we weren't this close to war. I don't know what the clock is at right now, but we are there. We're on the precipice. And so I think the answers have been being warned. And I do think that that's where we're heading. And, but I do really wonder, is this a war over real advanced ancient technology that may be in Iran? And another reason I think that there's a good argument for that is because in 2023, the Jerusalem Post published an article, and it was about how they had been able to use AI to consistently and accurately translate cuneiform. And cuneiform is the most ancient method of writing that we have that has ever been discovered. But there are only like 4 experts in all of the world who can read and translate cuneiform. So now we have AI who can accurately and consistently transform these cuneiform tablets. And so they started doing that. They started running all of these ancient cuneiform tablets through the AI. And, and I'm wondering, did they discover something? Yeah, 90 seconds to midnight. But I'm really starting to wonder if they discovered something in these tablets by running them through the AI.
By the way, 90 seconds to midnight is the closest that we've ever been. We weren't even at 90 seconds during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, it's really scary. And then it makes you wonder, well, are they going to come back? Will they come back for a war, of that scale? And then it's really coincidental timing that they are about to sacrifice the red heifers to literally put a phone call in for their Messiah to return, who is by definition not of this earth and extraterrestrial. So it seems to me, and Jesus did say that he would come back, that he was leaving to basically go terraform other planets, other exoplanets, to make homes for us, and that he would return. And we know because of relativity, time would be very different for any space traveler. And that's actually in the Bible too. There's actually relativity in the Bible and time dilation. Thousands of years before Einstein came up with that, which I think is really cool too. But yes, I think I really think it's worth discussing, is this war about ancient technology in Iran. So I don't know. I think that we should keep an eye on it, and I think that we should continue to have these conversations. And if the Messiah or the Messiahs come back, then we'll really be a popular show at that point. But
yeah, don't worry. If the Messiahs start returning, I will be the first to be with a camera flying there and dropping everything to get that.
We'll really get a lot of, we'll really be getting a lot of views then.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility that they would come back? And if that's what we're witnessing right now, is that we're witnessing ancient prophecy play out in front of our eyes, then it would seem to indicate that they are coming back. And I think you have said in every single show, Ty, that we're being prepared, they're coming back, even the United States government. And it's not just the US government anymore, it's also the British government, it's the Australians, that they seem to be attempting to prepare us for their return. And it's hard to argue against that. It does seem like there has been a multi-decade kind of priming going on to get people used to this idea. And it's so shocking. It really does have to, be a long-term program that they roll out. And then even Professor Simon, in one of his last videos that we discussed on this show a couple weeks ago, I think, he talked about how the United Nations had decided that it needed to be a 25-year long rollout period to acclimate people to these ideas. So all of that does seem to point that they are coming back. And then people have talked about catastrophic disclosure, where they come back and we're not prepared.
Yeah. And there's dates, like 2027 being thrown around by people like John Ramirez, LUE Elizondo's hinted at it. Others have hinted at it. There's, I hate putting dates on things because I'm not a huge fan of it, but John Ramirez is someone that I really respect. And for him to drop that, it just it resonates with me, and it leaves a haunting message. But so listen, some guy lit himself on fire.
Yeah.
I really want to just really quickly, all things aside, you brought up a story to me. I wasn't really going to talk about it. Didn't really want to talk about it, but he wrote a manifesto. I started getting into it. It's something I probably want to talk about at a later date, but something really terrible happened. And at this Trump hearing, was it a hearing?
It's actually it's the court. So Trump's actually in the court case now, I believe.
Supreme, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, to accurately cover this, we would need a lot more time, and I think we're running out here.
I know. Yeah.
Briefly, yeah. So outside
it's just
the
crazy
courthouse,
to me that someone could do something like that.
well, and
but
the guy who did it has a really impressive resume. He's on LinkedIn. I don't remember what his name is, but it's not hard to find. I mean, anybody can do a X search for, guy who set himself on fire, and his name is there. I don't remember what it is. But I looked at his LinkedIn, and it was impressive. I mean, he's worked on political campaigns. He had his picture with Bill Clinton. I believe he graduated from Rutgers. I mean, this is a smart guy. He worked for an energy company.
yeah,
he had
there's a reason I bring it up too.
He had an impressive
resume. That's one of the things that stood out. I think for early on when you sent it to me I was like, who is this guy? Like, really? But there's been talks about Marco Rubio running as Donald Trump's vice president. Marco Rubio is very, very adamant and involved in the UAP transparency fight. So what does that do? To the UFO world when if in a world where Trump runs with Rubio, I mean, do people vote just Rubio? Just because?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I've heard Rubio talk about these UAP issues, and he has just flat out said, aliens or little green men or not, there's incursions into our airspace, and it's a national security issue that we
talked about this last time. Time dilation, right?
With the Lord, 1,000 years are like a day. Yes, Starblade. Yeah. So
we talked about this last time. I think that this was a reference to like something like Interstellar, where when they go onto the water world, each hour that passes on that planet, that water world, is whatever amount of years on Earth. And how that, if you're looking at it through the eyes of relativity, would actually be the case. So when he goes and talks about other worlds and visiting other worlds and finding us other homes, I find it peculiar. I find it very peculiar. Because
Yeah,
that's when you step back and look at that. I mean, it all sounds very, very, very like
scientific.
spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so yes. So this, thank you, Starblade, for posting that, because this is quite literally relativity and time dilation right there in the Bible, 2,000 years before Einstein. And how did these people know that? How did they know that, 2,000 years to us, or I think it says 1,000 years to us is one day to the Lord. Yes, thank you, Jessica. Max Azzarello is was the person who set himself on fire today outside of Trump's trial.
Magically.
And so he wrote a manifesto, and I didn't really get into it because we were getting close to the show, but just the first couple paragraphs, it said history is a lie. And then I think he went on, I think his whole thing was about how I saw the sign that he had, and it said basically Trump and Biden are two sides of the same coin, kind of. It wasn't that phrasing, but it was that sentiment. If aliens come down and bring us into the caves, we're effed. Sam.
Yeah. Yeah. If the sky people come down, if the ant people come down and start bringing us into the caves, we know it's end of days. At least some cataclysms come in, because that's Native American lore.
Yeah, I think we might be the lucky ones. Certainly, the Hopi would say that the ant people have rescued them at the end of every world, I think 4 or 5 times now. So if the ant people show up and start taking me into under the ground in the Grand Canyon, I'm gonna feel pretty lucky.
Yeah, and which also lines up the 4 or 5 mass devastations. They line up with this theory that Nibiru, the planet, the Anunnaki planet, the object that NASA now confirms that there is a large object that orbits further than Pluto, but it has a very peculiar orbit and only comes by every 35,000 years, and that its orbit, it's not clear, but the theory posed that the one that Nibiru with the ancient aliens, or the Anunnaki, is that the Nibiru sometimes passes right in the perfect spot, does no harm to Earth, but sometimes it passes in between the moon and Earth and causes mass extinctions. So, you'd be lucky if one person survived.
There's a lot of evidence for the pole shifts in Earth's history, but they don't really know why. And there was that book from the CIA reading room, and I think it's called The Story of Adam and Eve. And it was actually classified in the 1950s for a long time. And then when they declassified it, they only declassified parts of it. And it was about pole shifts that regularly happen on the Earth. And we have evidence for that. I mean, they have evidence of, these huge prehistoric animals with grass in their mouth, and they were literally frozen to death in a flash instant.
Like
tropical.
Like it's crazy.
It is crazy.
And for in North America, at least down to Georgia, was covered in miles, like 20. I forget what they say. like 10 or 20 miles of ice, like the sheet of ice over North America, Canada, and North was it was, and then when that melted, you know, it caused rush a rush of water, and that's how you get places like, the channel scablands and
The
other,
Great,
yeah,
which are fresh water.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, and the sinking of Atlantis, or any other civilization close to the ports, because the sea levels would rise drastically very quickly. So could it be possible, if Atlantis was in the place that most people agree, which is off the coast of Cuba? Could Yeah, it makes sense that Atlantis would have it would have been destroyed after some sort of heating, mass, really, really quick heating of the planet. And that usually comes with either a comet impact, like the Younger Dryas theory, or something like that,
Yeah. There, what we know is that there was
or a
a
volcanic
definite,
eruption.
yeah, a definite drastic shift. Something drastic happened multiple times in the history of the earth. And the Hopi will say that at the end of every earth that they have been saved by the ant people. And then when you look at a description of, when you read a description of how they describe the ant people, they're literally describing grays. I mean, their ant people are what we would today call gray aliens. I mean, and then when you think about a gray alien, well, yeah, I guess it kind of does look like an ant person. I mean, if I had to, that's a pretty good description. And so the Hopi will say that at the end of every world, when a massive cataclysm happened, which, like you said, maybe it's Nibiru coming into the orbit and completely destabilizing the Earth, or these pole shifts, or a combination of all of those things. But the Hopi will say that the ant people took them underground in the Grand Canyon and saved them. And actually, the Hopi are very sentimental about the ant people, very grateful to them, because they even say that the ant people gave up their own food rations to feed them. Um, and then when everything was stable on the surface of the earth again, they would let the Hopi people go, and they would give them directions. They would say, go out in all four corners of the earth, spread out and go and repopulate the earth. And that is actually inscribed on Prophecy Rock in Arizona, on one of the mesas in northern Arizona there. And so you and I have talked multiple times on this show about, if they come back, where are they going to come back to? Are they going to come back to a temple in the middle of a war zone in the Middle East? Are they going to
Or
go
they're
back?
gonna park over Stonehenge.
Right. Yeah. Are they going to go back to some place like Stonehenge or the pyramids? I personally think there's good evidence that they could return to any of those places, but especially the Grand Canyon. I think, and the Hopi say that they would take them underneath the Grand Canyon, and there's actually a specific place, and I think it's called, Devil's. I can't remember, but there's a very specific place in the Grand
Devil's
Canyon.
Tower?
Not Devil's Tower. That's the
Oh,
place
that's
in
in Wyoming. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's in
that looks like
Wyoming.
a tree stump. But Devil's Tower in Wyoming is where they depicted the alien return in Steven Spielberg's movie. What was it? the third, what was that movie? The mashed potatoes guy.
What?
The guy who was he was sculpting Devil's Tower out of his mashed potatoes. Encounters of the Third Kind. That's what it was. So,
Richard Dreyfuss in the mashed potatoes. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
mashed potato
Encounters.
guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Steven Spielberg, and then
I was like,
actually,
what are you going on about?
I know
Mashed
mashed potato
potatoes.
guy is very specific, but so Steven Spielberg sort of led people to believe that it was Devil's Tower in Wyoming.
But breaking news from Variety: Steven Spielberg his next movie is going to be a UFO based genred film, and it's going to be based on his own ideas, an original script, and it will not be a direct sequel to Close Encounters, but we know that Spielberg, worked closely with people like Dr. Hynek for Project Blue Book. The main scientist from Project Blue Book even made a cameo in the film at the end there when they're celebrating. He walks through with a cigar. So we know Spielberg is informed to some degree. And I think that directors like him are informed to some degree. I think it's all I need to know, but I think what they need to know is what they're given. And because it's not uncommon for the CIA, like say Marvel is shooting or some big studio is shooting and they need to use the CIA or one of these FBI buildings. What they'll do is the FBI will, they'll let them do it, but they consult on the film at that point, and make sure like the uniforms and stuff, and that it's kind of cool how it works. But so I think some directors are absolutely told certain information and are nudged in certain ways to make it so that the public is a drop here, a drop there. Again, I think what we've been being slowly seeded the idea that life outside of Earth is not uncommon. If you look at Marvel, the popularity of it, right? If you look at any Disney movie nowadays, right, it's all about aliens. Everything's aliens. Everything's non-human intelligence. And I think there's a reason for that. I think and that's why we see this new generation of people who, instead of volunteering for the military, are not identifying with a nation. They're identifying globally as a citizen of Earth, right? Though we have the lowest volunteer numbers in the military in years. And I think that's a testament to what's going on. And that is that people are realizing and waking up to the fact that these borders are drawn on maps. They're not real, right? It's stupid. All this conflict. It's a game of chess being played by people who run the world, the top 1%, making the decisions to the rest of the 99. And I think the 99 are starting to fucking get pissed. And again, that's why movies like A24 and Civil War, this new movie that came out, is their highest grossing film of all time. Opening weekend. This new Civil War.
Yeah, I've read a lot about that where people are kind of walking away pretty disturbed. But, it could happen again. We are very divided, and maybe just like, Ronald Reagan said, and I think you have it in the opening of the show, that, Jessica, I think it is Devil's Bridge. It had devil in it. Yes, Close Encounters. Thank you, Richard
Devil's
Dreyfuss.
Den.
Thank you. Yes. So maybe this is, you know, the information that we need right now to put our differences aside, you know, because if we're going to be having wars and really not launching, you know, nuclear weapons over, you know, my sky person is better than your sky person, that's a real problem. And we are not spiritually advanced enough to have those kinds of weapons. So if people can recognize and extend their respect and courtesy, and recognize, yes, your religion is right and your religion is right, and everybody's right. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle. They're all just looking at a gem through different facets. I really believe that. And if we could get people to see that, maybe we could avoid stuff like civil war or World War III or hot war or nuclear war. Yeah, I hope, and I hope for that every day. I think it is our best chance. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that this is our best chance to avoid, you know, completely catastrophic war with people who may have different religious beliefs?
What I think is that the factionalization is what's the worst for humankind, and I think it'd be wise of people to step back and realize that that each religion is a piece of the puzzle, and if we were to all sit down at a table, you know, unlike what the UN rhetoric would be, right? Or what the idea of the UN is, right? Is sitting down, but on another level, on a scientific, on a philosophical, sit at a table in a room somewhere and just talk. Everyone, all the leaders of the world. And prerequisite, I'm going to bring something up that Sam said, because we do, is to get into this room, you need to eat an eighth of mushrooms. And then all the world leaders go in, they eat an eighth of mushrooms together, right? Everyone has a happy time. They all love the life and they love each other. And we come out, peace, done. That's how you solve it immediately. Get them in the room, give them some DMT, give them some mushrooms, give them some acid. No, not acid. No, because they might end up ripping each other to, you know, or fighting each other. But no, yeah. I think it's a prerequisite that if you're leading, if you have nuclear codes, I think you need to have gone on a spiritual journey.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like we don't have the spiritual maturity to have these weapons, and
that's what worries me about people like. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I didn't. The Wi-Fi lag there didn't do justice. So in North Korea, they changed the laws so that Kim Jong-un basically could misread a situation and cause or respond, retaliate with a nuclear force on a moment's notice to any threat that he deemed to North Korea. And it is very, very open and vague as to what determines what a threat is. So basically, he's changed the laws so that he can basically start a nuclear war whenever he wants. And
yeah, that's very scary.
Yeah, in places like Russia and the United States, where UFOs have tampered with nuclear sites, what if they go in and tamper with a North Korean one, and North Korea's like, well, this must be an attack on us. Click.
Yeah, or maybe that's some of the only reassurance that we have is that we do know that there is a long demonstrated history of these crafts completely shutting down launch codes, missiles, computer systems, all of that. And, so maybe that is some reassurance that maybe they could intervene if we were about to
fly on the nicest of others.
Yeah, if we were about to, go to midnight. And so I don't know if they would intervene to that point. I certainly hope that somebody's watching out for us. But, maybe if we could just find one thing that the whole world can agree on, that we can come together instead of being so far apart. That's my hope.
That's why I think that disclosure is even on the table. I think I think there's right now, I think that we're in the end game, right? So if anyone is a Marvel fan, we're in the end game now. And what that means is, so Doctor Strange, he's a wizard or he's a mystic, if you will. He is basically the protector of the universe on an astral level, on a magical level. That's who he is. And he tells Tony Stark, Iron Man, that we're in the end game now. And he goes through 5,008,000 whatever possibilities. And there's only one where the Avengers win and beat Thanos. And it needs to play out exactly as it plays out, right? Tick tock, domino, 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 domino. So each needs to fall. So Doctor Strange sees that, and in that moment gives up the one thing that can beat the villain in that moment, right? So he loses the battle in order to win the war, because he knows that it will set off this domino effect, right? And I think we're in the end game now. I see a hole, and if we thread the needle just right, I think we come out on the other side. And I think we come out on the other side something different, right?
Well, and hopefully new in technology, that would solve our energy problems and our environmental problems. And I think that would be best case scenario. And I certainly work for that every day, to try to make this an issue that brings people closer together instead of farther apart, because we're not getting closer together the way we've been going.
What I worry about is the false flag. Using the others as the thing that unites us, but in the other way, as an enemy.
Unites us against a common enemy.
Common enemy. Yes. Yeah. That is what scares me. So, and that's the Dr. Greer way of looking at it. I get it, right? But I'm going to hold on hope that that is not the end game. That is not that's not the needle. That's not threading the needle. I think what we do is we come out on the other side as a species that is welcomed into the cosmic galactic federate, whatever it is that's out there. I think at that point we'll have proven ourselves worthy, and possibly raised our consciousness in the process. So that's all for today, guys. Really, really great show, though. Really great show. Teresa, we're going to continue the conversation if they would like to. You're a wealth of knowledge. You always are very articulate in what you say about it and how you present what you do. So if they want to get you on the show, if they want to bring you onto a space, how do they do that?
They can find me on Twitter at
Tyndall Review.
Yes, Tyndall Review. Thank you. And I'm pretty active on Twitter. I won't be tonight. It's already 9:15, and I'm in my life is pretty busy now, but they can always find me on Twitter at Tyndall Review, and I monitor that account and I always respond. And thanks for having me. I love doing the show. I love the people who watch us and our audience members. And maybe next, I'm really hoping to bring some evidence from my own life. I don't like being the story. I don't want to be the story. But
number one rule of journalism: don't
I know.
become the story.
Don't become the story. But there has been so much bizarre activity. Not just from my childhood when I first saw the gold disc, but recently. And I'm not right on top of Skinwalker Ranch, but I'm close-ish. And I really wonder if I'm experiencing some Skinwalker activity. So maybe we can bring some of those videos on.
I would
get
be
people. I would really like.
I'd be open to that if.
What I really need is somebody who is an expert in like video analysis, because I really think I have some orbs on my Ring camera. And
well, just so happens that I do have a video guy, and his name is, and he'll be coming on the podcast. Actually, probably next week. Mark D'Antonio. He's the MUFON video guy. And he's also and so good news for everybody is that we are full throttle on finishing the movie. We got access to the website again. I was locked out for a while. Got access today to the website. So a lot of the stuff for the movie and the show, totaldisclosure.org is going to be the one-stop shop for everything, live shows. It's how you can support the show, updates on the movie, when the movie comes out, you'll be able to buy it there, that kind of stuff. It'll be we're working with various distribution companies, but we have the whole team. We have the most famous sightings for Bridgewater. We've got a stellar cast of people for this film, and it is coming together like you would not believe some of the things that we've uncovered. So for all that, you're going to want to hit the notification bell and keep up to date. Please like this video, share it, but most importantly, subscribe. And if you want to help support the show, join our membership, pay what you want, and everyone gets the same benefits, early access to content, like pre-recorded interviews for the podcast, behind the scenes content, and a yearly gift that's a 12 months consecutive membership. So it really goes a long way. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, best way to do it is to leave a review. You wouldn't know, but it is honestly a game changer for the algorithm. I'd say 80% to 90% of people who listen and watch the show are not subscribed or following. So we want to change that. And we want to get to a wider, broader, and bigger audience. So we can only do that with your help, guys. So watch on YouTube, watch on Twitter, watch on Rumble, listen on Apple, do it all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Teresa, you were great. And I guess we'll see everyone next time. I just played the wrong video. I don't know where the outro is. I think it has been deleted somehow.
Oh no.
So, yeah, I don't know where it is.